Jimmy K here, Metal Voice. Look at this. The Metal Voice shirts are now on sale. Just go to the video description to find out on how you can purchase one. Metal! And welcome to the Metal Voice. Today, a super special guest, the one and only Mr. Jon Zazula, the co-founder of Megaforce and CraZed Management, along with his wonderful wife, Marcia Zazula. The man who brought, at least my generation, and I guess many more generations, soundtrack to our lives in regards to metal, heavy metal, thrash, speed metal, etc., etc. How you doing, Jonny?
What's going on is we're waiting on a hurricane in Florida right now. And other than that, what would you like to know that's exciting?
Here we are. So, to be released on October 29th at Heavy Tales, The Metal, the Madness, the Music, the new book by Jon Zazula, who also have a Q&A and book signing on October 24th at the Cutting Room in New York at 7 o'clock, as well as October 26th, the Vintage Vinyl Store, a book signing, and of course, a Q&A at 2 o'clock. So, Jonny, let's just start off right at the top. Tell me about, a lot of people don't know about your flea market and how you sort of established, you had the pulse on the youth. Just tell me about having the pulse on the youth in the times of heavy metal in the early 80s.
I think I was 30 years old at the time.
Yeah.
29 maybe.
Okay.
So I was that older guy. And metal really was exciting and turned me on. The first song that really blew my mind came off of a compilation album, Friday Rock Show, from the BBC.
Okay.
Where Samson and Holocaust and a whole bunch of bands. Gates of Babylon. I don't know how it made that. All I could tell you was I was totally into metal. The second I heard Motorhead, the second I heard Angel Witch, it really turned me on in a very big way. And I decided that was the direction we were going to take in this record business.
And then, of course, I mean, we're not going to talk about every detail of your book because we want people to read it. But from getting the pulse and the read of this market of heavy metal and thrash and speed metal, you opened up a store. Can you tell me a little bit about opening up that flea market store in New Jersey?
Well, the story is in the book.
Yeah.
There's just much to tell. But the store was basically called Rock and Roll Heaven. People came from 500 miles away to come and buy the metal selection we had that was unbelievable. We had everything. If it was out, we had it. If it wasn't even out, I think we had it. But we had things from every country, every part of the world, the United States, you name it. And people just came and all met at the store. It was a social gathering place. Now, this is just in a flea market, mind you, that's no bigger than the room I'm in right now, maybe smaller than the room I'm in right now. But it was packed all the time with metal and metalheads. I don't know if I said this in the book, but when Randy Rhoads died, the whole entire flea market we were in was packed with headbangers who came to mourn his death at my store. It was the weirdest thing. We all came to be together because we were all so blown away by his death. You know, that's the kind of place it was, Jim.
And of course, an interesting aspect to it all is Canada's Anvil. I mean, how close they were to you and the demand in the U.S. to sort of, and your idea to bring them over, right, to do a show. And not only were you a store, a place where everybody would gather, but you would put on these shows that nobody was putting on at the time, at least for heavy metal. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Well, I was trying to start a movement in the Northeast, some kind of heavy metal movement, and get the freight train rolling. And one of the fellas that was in the metal militia, Ray Dill, came to me and said, "Jonny, why don't you bring a band over?" And I said, "That's a great idea." So I didn't know anything about it, but I knew that I wanted some bands to play for me live in the United States. And I said, Metal on Metal is one fantastic record. and it was one of the hottest records in my store. So I said, let's bring over Anvil, not knowing you have to pay for immigration, you have to do this, you have to do that. But I said, come on, boys, come on over to New Jersey. We're going to do a show. And that's the Anvil story. And they came, and it was 600 capacity.
Tell me about how you discovered the Metallica demo tape, the famous No Life Till Leather demo tape.
There's a fellow who I owe my life to, basically. I know his name. I'm not going to say it here.
Okay.
But he came to me from California, where he just saw Metallica and bought a demo tape from them. He had the No Life Till Leather and the Live at the Mab. And I bought them. I didn't buy them. He made me play them. I didn't even want to play them because I don't like to play demos in my store while I'm playing, the current metal that's happening,
Yep.
Knew what a Metallica was. Nobody had a clue. But somehow I put it on. And within minutes, I was just blown away. Just blown. I mean, like God hit me with a hammer, Jim. The door came out and went, boom, Jonny, you got to do something about this. I didn't know what to do, but I started reading and looking for anywhere that there was anything about them. And I found in a fanzine a story about them, learned where they came from. And on the back of the demo, there was a phone number for KJ Dorton. I called KJ. We had a good talk, met, and he put me in touch with Lars. And that's basically the circle. And Lars and me spoke, and I told him I have like 12 shows out here. Come on out here. I'll put you on the shows. And we'll, some of them are with Venom. I'm bringing Venom to America. And he just said, yeah, man, send me some money. I'm coming.
A lot of people take pot shots at Lars, over the years, over his drumming or his attitude. But at the end of the day, in your opinion, how professional was he from such a young age? How serious was he?
Let me tell you something. He was as serious as a heart attack. And I personally love Lars Ulrich. I really respect him. He's got him short stick. We all have stick. But the reality of life is I really respect him. I respected him when he was young. I understood one of the reasons which I explained in the book as to why I am no longer their manager. I understood the reasoning behind all that, which was crazy, but it was their reasoning. And, I have the ultimate respect. Let's just leave it at that for Mr. Ulrich.
And you know what? You got to read the book if you want more on that. How's that? You got to pick up the book. We don't want to give it all away. We just want quick, high level right now. And just your idea, here's a guy who I believe you had, a trading degree, right? And, you have a lot of business sense and suddenly, but the music industry is very foreign to you at this point. But you said, you know what, I'm just going to throw it all in there with my wife. We're just going to basically start a record label and record Metallica's first album. I mean, did it scare you? I mean, were you ever scared? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing here.
Well, I said, I don't think I know what I'm doing here about 1,000 times. But it was like Marsha wouldn't let me back down. She's like an in it to win it. Jonny, you believe in this. Just, go for it, man. And we sacrificed greatly financially. I had no money. I was broke. But we did what we had to do to get Metallica going. And I felt that if I felt this way about the band, so will other people.
Yeah. And you know what? I find this book is not only about music and the metal movement and how you started this whole era or this scene, we'll call it, or industry. It's also about a man and a wife, and you've told me this before, who started a business and pursued a dream with no money, but they found a way to find that money. It's very inspirational, this book. I tell you, it's very, very inspirational.
Good. I wanted it to be. If I could do it, man, Anybody could do it.
Exactly.
But I came
Exactly.
from less than zero, not zero, less than zero.
So then, you had the point where Metallica, and this was always a curious point for me. Why didn't Metallica ever get a lead singer? I mean, you were around there, you were recording their first album. Why didn't they just make that plunge into getting a lead singer?
Well, they thought the job was being handled well. Lars thought that they could use a lead singer, maybe to take it to the next level. I don't know. I never liked the idea, and it didn't go forward. But I did make a call to John Bush to come over and be the singer.
Yeah.
And I'm happy he turned me down.
It just turned out.
John Bush. I love John Bush.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But James is just fine, I think.
Yeah. What about your relationship with Mercyful Fate and King Diamond, Mercyful Fate? You you were their I guess you were their distributor or licenser in North America. Can you tell me about?
We had the responsibility to break Mercyful Fate in the United States with the Melissa album, which we licensed through Roadrunner Records. Roadrunner would work SOD in Europe, and we would work Mercyful Fate in the United States. And they played Memoirs and a few shows under our guidance and really started to take off in a big way. But the business dealings with Roadrunner and Megaforce really just ended with that. It was a let's see what we could do, and I don't think we were both really that focused on preserving a relationship. We just went on to the next. And they told me I don't have the next Mercyful Fate album. I said, that stinks.
I mean, Melissa is monumental. Yeah.
I didn't have Mercyful Fate. I had Man of War. I mean, there's always something. And I will say that Mercyful Fate is one of my favorite bands in the world.
Yeah. Great.
I'm Diamond and his boys.
Did you ever find like maybe too much satanic overtones were sort of what was chasing people away or making it difficult in the U.S.? Because even King Diamond, after Don't Break the Oath, even he started toning it down.
Well, his voice turned a lot of people off, I don't think it was the lyrics. I think some of the art on the original EP was a little bit aggressive there in that nature. But, I don't think I think it was his vocals that held him back and his vocals that made him.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, in another band, there's just so many bands, and we're not going to go through every band, but I know this is a favorite of yours, Raven, and it's a favorite of mine too. All for One, their live album. What went right and what went wrong in breaking them as a band, in your opinion? Over, now you could look back and say, this is what I did right and this is what I did wrong.
What happened with Raven is I think that they realistically saw that I was giving too much time to Metallica, and my partner was giving them the time they needed. And they went with my partner to follow his footsteps into the future. And I worked with Metallica, and my partner broke with Raven, and I broke with also Anthrax. At the time, I was giving too much time and attention to Anthrax. So, Raven, who started it all, were all of a sudden neglected. And it was very unfair. But I was just moved by what was the energy flow at the time. And the energy flow was based more on the upcoming thrash market or world.
Let me give everybody an overall summary now. So you started off as trading stocks. You got in a little bit of trouble in that, and you could talk about that in the book. We're not going to talk about it now. You then opened up a flea market in New York. From there, you saw that there was such a huge sort of scene in terms of metal and thrash and speed that you started bringing bands over to play shows. Then you decided to record an album for Metallica, and then you said, you know what? these guys from Anthrax are pestering me to get them on my label called Megaforce. Tell me about the recording, the pros and cons of recording Fistful of Metal, just quickly.
I will talk about Fistful of Metal once I just correct you on one thing.
Go ahead.
There was no speed metal.
Okay.
There was no thrash at that time. You had Exodus bubbling on the West Coast and some other thrash bands, but they haven't popped their head out on vinyl yet.
Okay.
You basically had, when we came aboard, was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Rainbow, Iron Maiden, Motorhead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Y&T, The Rod. I mean, that was the scene. Angel Witch,
Yep.
the new wave of heavy metal, Raven. Okay, now it brings you to what, now that you know what the scene is, we'll go to Anthrax. Anthrax really came together in the studio doing Fistful of Metal. I remember that they were a really good band, but when I heard Metal Thrashing Mad, I was convinced that they were a great band. And I became a huge, huge Anthrax fan. Metallica were gone. And I said, you know what? These guys are great. Let's put our energy and love into this band. And we managed Anthrax and worked with them on albums for 11 years.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
And I mean, but what's even more amazing is, and you talk about in your book too, is like suddenly Neil Turbin's gone, and suddenly Dan Leiker's gone as well, which is kind of weird after the band's got so much momentum. I don't know, maybe care to comment on that quickly?
Well, the band had some momentum. They didn't tour a lot on Fistful of Metal. There was just too much trouble within the group that it would either implode or go on with new members. And if they were to go on with new members, they would have to be great players. And Frankie Bello worked out just fine. You know, even Charlie Benanti wasn't the original drummer of the Anthrax that I got involved with. I think his name was Greg D'Angelo,
It was,
maybe.
Yeah, it was.
And that last show that they played was the famous Willie's show with Metallica, where Greg left and then Charlie Benanti came in. The quest for Joey was a long, hard road, written about in the book.
Yeah, well, people will explore that in the book. Actually, just one correction: Greg Walls was the original guitarist, right?
Who?
Greg Walls and D'Angelo was a drummer, right? He was.
Right.
That's right. Just get the timeline there.
And
Go ahead.
I love the singer.
Yeah, Neil was great. Still is.
Neil is great.
Still is.
Still is. Hey.
He's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. Let's just get into Ride the Lightning. So your Metallica's now under the management of you and your wife, CraZed management. You've recorded their first album. You've had a lot of success. The second album is recorded overseas, Ride the Lightning. And again, another great album. And suddenly the band says, you know what, Jonny? We want to go with the big guys. I mean, how did it make you feel emotionally? You know, your baby, right, is gone off spreading its wings, right?
I basically felt about as bad as one could feel. Now, I'm a manic depressive legally. I have it on record that I am one. I just don't complain about it. I am one.
Okay.
And this set me on a big, big depression run. But I lifted myself up. You know, it's not the end of the world, you know. It blew my mind. Unfortunately, it made me not trust any band that I ever dealt with again, even if they loved me. Because even if they love you, if they have a better business opportunity, I always feel that you are gone.
You know, I even felt bad for you, Johnny. I'm reading it and I'm going like, here you are, you're giving it everything you got. They're sleeping in your house. You've invested your whole life into this band. And again, I get it why they're doing it.
Had some very good managers. I did not succeed yet at signing the deal with them. I think the new people were in play. I don't want to get into all the politics of
Yeah, I hear you.
I will say that I felt terrible, but life did not end with the loss of Metallica, because Megaforce Records and its record of who we signed and what records we put out speaks for itself. And we had one success after another, plus Ministry we had for 5 years and at the top of their career.
Yep.
You know, I managed to live with it all.
The signing of Metallica, having the first two albums, it built the momentum of a whole company, right? And I love what you say. You turned a scene into an industry. You know, and it's interesting enough because when the grunge movement came along, Sub Pop turned a scene into an industry. It's sort of like they did the exact same thing you did, but with another genre of music. And,
yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, it's kind of ironic in a way, right? That, you know, how did you feel when grunge was coming out, hitting you hard? You know, suddenly the big boys are pushing grunge and they're not pushing metal anymore, and it must have hurt you guys mentally, financially. How'd you feel about all that?
Please know that Nirvana were playing, I believe, in New Brunswick, or were in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and I was homesick. And Kurt Cobain wanted to come over to the office. I didn't know who it was. It was supposed to be some of the guys in Nirvana wanted to come say hi to you, Johnny.
Wow.
But make it. But they weren't Nirvana. They were Nirvana. You know? You know, but I heard their demo tapes. Wow. It was amazing. You know, for a different kind of music. But I have ears for different kinds of music. Unfortunately, it was grunge that came along and really put the metal business in the dark ages for a few years.
Yeah, and you have to reinvent yourself too, right?
In the new metal revolution, all the survivors and non-survivors are back and raging like they were 20 years old, you know?
Yeah.
It's a great thing. It's a great thing. But grunge put a hurting on the metal business in a big way.
Yeah. But I mean, a cool signing that you did that I remember back in the day is Ace Frehley. You know, he's out of Kiss. And I thought that was a very, very smart signing. I don't know, how difficult was he to work with? And okay, don't get into great detail, but how, like, at the beginning or at the end of, you know, when you had I think it was 3 albums you were with him?
Yeah, my relationship with Ace was wonderful. I have nothing bad to say about Ace Frehley. In fact, I only have good things. I learned what a creative artist he was, what a creative mind he was, how everybody thinks he's not, and he is so much. He's a really good guitar player, and he is from Kiss. You know, he has royalty, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I treated Ace like he was royalty. You know, gave him the utmost respect, and he gave me the utmost respect. I haven't seen him in a very long time, but I enjoyed working with Ace Frehley.
Discovering Testament, discovering Overkill. These are two, you know, now we're talking about thrash. Like before you said it's evolving slowly into thrash, but now we're really getting into thrash. How was your relationship with Overkill over the years and Testament? And what stood out for you?
Well, I thought they were both great bands. I really understood their music. I really appreciated their music. And I mean, the new Overkill album is unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's great, man. The opening of that album is as heavy as could be. And as far as Testament goes, I remain big fan of Testament today. I'm great friends with Chuck. He wrote the foreword of the book. You know, what can I say about Testament? I have a long, wonderful history with that band.
All right. Is there anything that you'd like to mention about your book to tell the fans?
It's not a book about people going out and getting high and chasing girls all over the place. It's not about that. You won't find that with me. It is the story of a man who loved his metal and did everything in his heart and sacrificed a lot. In fact, we sacrificed an awful lot, Marsha and I, to really get metal off the ground in America. And once it got off the ground, we sort of let the other labels run with it.
I was going to say, well, I could tell you that it's going to be released October 29th, and people could pre-sale the book right now. Plus, there's a Q&A, which I wish I was around the Jersey area. I would have loved to attend it. October 24th, Cutting Room in New York, and October 26th, Vintage Vinyl at 2 o'clock. Definitely go to your website, JonnyZazula.com, I believe. I'm sure it's there in Google search. Jon.
Zazula.com.
JonZazula.com. There you could find all the information. There you could find all the Q&As and all the dates and the times where you'll be, talking to the fans. To me, this is probably one of the biggest story of my generation, at least. And we said it before, what you did is you provided the soundtrack to my generation, and thank you for that. Thank you very much.
What I wanted to say about the book also is that it's a story for everyone. I mentioned it earlier. We could all do it if we believed in it. It's a blue-collar story. Nobody was born with silver spoon in their mouth over here. I'm not saying, hey, but in the book, you'll basically see that. You'll also understand me better because I was a very lucky man, and I proved that the team is more powerful than the individual because you have Maria, Testament, Ministry. You have Ed Trump, Ace Frehley. You got Marsha, King's X. That's the bands they discovered and brought to me as the head of Megaforce Records. And you learn the stories of how all these things happen. A lot of them were accidents. The signings were accidents because, you got to read it. It's great. So anyway, everybody, thank you for your time. I'm on my way. I got to prepare for a hurricane that's about to hit. I'll see you later.
Say farewell to the future. Get ready for the